This is a story of my sexual assault. If you did not watch the previous video about the backstory and red flags leading up to this assault, please watch that. I will link it below. Most assaults do not happen randomly. They are perpetrated by people you know and trust. And there are signs that can help you from becoming a victim. Let's get into the story. Now, let's fast forward to my freshman year of high school. I had a different crush, so I'm not sure how, but I'm assuming through attending the high school football games, which I didn't even go to often. I went to kickoff, definitely went to homecoming, and it must have been at homecoming that I saw him. And then we must have said hi or bye at that game, and then the last game of the season was coming, and I just got hyper focused, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my chance to get him back for real this time. And I literally remember the week leading up to this last football game. I remember being in class with my best friend at the time, and we were on our school laptops looking at the football game being promoted on the school's website and everything, and I was just like, we have to go. So now comes Friday night, November 5th, 2013. I'm all ready for the game. I'm in my room. I've done my hair, my makeup, put on a specific cute outfit. Of course, every woman who has been assaulted will tell you they remember that outfit, because it's just, you can't forget that outfit. So I was wearing a maroon sweatshirt, and it had gold cats on it. And I was wearing these black skinny jeans, but they were the worst fabric you can even think of. They weren't denim. They were like jeggings. And I was wearing a hat from my grandma. It was one of my grandma's hats. It was crocheted, and she had recently passed away the year prior. So I was wearing that hat, the black hat, and shoes I don't remember. But yeah, I had my hair straightened, makeup done, on a full mission to get a boy to choose me. So my best friend calls. It's 15 minutes before the game. Well, she tells me she suddenly can't make it because she needs to go to camp this weekend. Now, her brother had hemophilia, her younger brother. So they did these special camp type things with him. I don't know if they got him free or what it was, but they often did this. But it was November, and looking back, of course, I don't know if that was true or she just canceled on me because she didn't want to go. But she canceled, and I was so desperate to go. I texted another one of my friends who I had known since 5th grade, but we weren't close. So my mom hadn't ever met her or her mom. And me and this girl never did anything outside school together. So I texted her and asked her, was she going to the game? She was like, yeah, I'm going with these two other girls who, I don't have names for them, but let's say the one girl I was obsessed with being friends with for the longest time, but she did not like me. She found me annoying. we used to be friends in second grade for a very short period of time. Who knows what happened? But yeah, so that was one of the girls, and the other girl I vaguely knew, but I wasn't friends with them. So I was like, do you want to meet up? Like, we can meet up at the gate, at the ticket stand, and like just hang out and stuff. She was like, yeah, sure. So somehow I coaxed my parents into letting me go to the game to meet up with somebody that they don't know. And it's November. High school has just started. Obviously, I would not let my daughter do this because I need to know who you're hanging out with. You're not just going to want to go somewhere and then just throw in a name that I've never heard of, a person I've never met, to go to a high school football game. But anyway, they agreed to that. And so they take me. Then, I meet up with the girl and then her friends, and we're at the concessions. We get through with our tickets. We're at the concessions, getting some snacks, and then eventually I see him, John. And he's surrounded by a group of other boys. And then we started talking, and the conversation escalated pretty fast into, am I going to give him top? Which at the time, I didn't know what that was. I was like, what is that? And then one of the boys was like, it means, are you going to suck his? And then I was like, no. And then he told me to shut up. So for some reason, I'm still following him around. And we end up under the bleachers on a bench, and he's talking about he's so cold. He needs me to put my hands in his pants to warm him up, and he needs me to let him put his hands in my shirt to touch my boobs to warm him up. And of course I'm like, no. And this group of kids that was following him around, it wasn't all boys. It seemed like they were a nuisance to him. Like they weren't friends with him. I don't know what was going on with that situation, why they were following him around. But they were following him around. And he was getting increasingly irritated by that. So I think, the group came by, and one of the younger boys was like, or maybe the girl, because one of the boys was her brother. Maybe she came up. She was like, is he bothering you? And I was like, no, we're just like exes. We're gonna get back together, or something to that extent. Then we had some kind of conversation where I made it clear, like, I'm not trying to do whatever you're talking about. Like, I just want to get back together. I can't remember what his response to that was, but I remember just him walking off. I just remember him walking off. So, during this, I'm being insulted. There's one instance where we're on the hill underneath the bleachers. Like, there was two hills. There was a smaller one. We're underneath that. Sitting on that hill. And I remember he was eating Nerds because the smell of his breath. And the order of everything I don't remember, but I'm going to explain to you certain scenes of us sitting on the hill. He was trying to force me to kiss him. He's grabbing the back of my neck and the back of my head, like pushing me down. He has his thing out of his pants. Y'all, it was like, what, 20 something degrees? And, I kept pushing against him, being like, no, I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And, he eventually, like, kind of shoved me away from him. And then he took my hat off my head and, like, threw it on the ground and then walked off. And like I said, y'all, my grandma had just passed away. This was, I remember, sitting at the dining room table, like, going through my grandma's jewelry with my mom. Like, this had just occurred. So, of course, that really hurt my feelings. Like, we had just gone through my grandma's stuff. Anyway, disrespecting my property. Walking off, throwing little temper tantrums. And I remember at one point, I was so upset, I went to the bathroom and was crying in the bathroom. But then, like, I looked at myself in the mirror and was, like, fixing my makeup, fixing my hair. And y'all, I wish I could remember what went through my brain, because it was something very specific. Some kind of newfound resolve, or did I put my foot down and say, okay, I'm not going to follow him around anymore? I don't remember. But there was a point where this guy who I had met because my best friend had a crush on him, and then she had sent me to deliver a message to him, back in middle school. The whole do you like me, yes or no, type of thing. So I had known him through middle school, and I think we had like a class together, and that's a story in and of itself. But let's just say he was kind of a friend, mostly a foe. So I remember he was at this game too. And I can't remember if he came over to me, if I went up to him. He was underneath the bleachers, just like, I guess, catching some air. I don't know what he was doing by himself. But however that happened, he had kind of like seen what was going on with like the trying to get me to touch him and like the fondling. And I mean, apparently from the outside it was very disruptive, to the point where, 12-year-olds are asking, is he bothering me and stuff like that. So of course this guy also noticed something was kind of off. And I'm trying to remember our conversation. It was so shocking. And I'm telling y'all, you will not believe the people who will do a full 180 from hating your guts to defending you and trying to protect you when it comes to a sexual incident of any sexual nature, because humanity is genuinely disgusted by these things. Even as a child, we were all kids. We were all kids. I was probably the oldest one of the bunch because my birthday was in the beginning of the school year in October. So I had already turned 15, but most of my peers were still 14. And then we're dealing with middle schoolers who are 12 and 13. So I guess he was kind of like, who is that guy? He was like, who is that guy? Do you know him? I was like, oh, yeah, that's my ex-boyfriend from middle school and blah, blah, blah. And he said something along the lines of, do you know you don't have to let him treat you like that, right? And y'all, if you knew who this was coming from, of all people, yeah. So for the rest of the night, he kind of, I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't necessarily watching the game the whole time. So sometimes he would just be down there in that same spot underneath the bleachers, but just like watching. Like it seemed like, I don't know, maybe I'm being dramatic. But it seemed like he was kind of like keeping an eye out. So eventually me and my ex-boyfriend, me and John, I've ended up with him again. I don't know. We're up on the big hill, like the pillars. We're now behind the pillars of the entire bleachers, and up against the fence that leads to the baseball field. And of course, it's very shady and dark back there, away from all the blinding Friday night lights. Okay, so I remember him. At this point, I'm kind of getting panicked. He's forcing me to kiss him, and I'm saying no, I don't want to do that. And now he's starting to like take his out of his pants and like force, like grab my hand and make me like do stuff with my hand. And so now I'm like, and y'all, of course my gloves are off. It's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous situation for just it alone, but then the temperature adds a whole nother psychological aspect to it, really. So maybe after the forced kissing, that tripped me out because I had never like made out with a boy. I'm sure I had kissed a boy before, but not like been forced to make out with somebody ever. So at this point, I'm pulling out my phone and I'm kind of texting the girl that I met up with, my friend I met up with. And I'm like, where are you? We need to kind of meet back up. And so he sees my phone, and at this point in time, everybody had an iPhone. Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous. But I had just gotten a phone, and it was a BlackBerry. It wasn't a BlackBerry. It was the next thing after the BlackBerry, where like the BlackBerry had the keys and then the screen, but it was just all one phone. This was one of those slide ups where the keyboard got revealed when you slid it up. So he started making fun of my phone. He was like, "What is that? Like, you have a brick. Like, can you even make calls? Can you even text people on that?" Anyway, and then eventually that group of seventh graders that was following him around like came and disturbed us, and the girl whose brother was in the group, they was Hispanic, so y'all, I can hear her accent to this day. And she saw what was going on and she was like, girls should be fucking respected. Just imagine that in like a seventh grade, Hispanic seventh graders, spicy attitude voice. Okay. And then I guess her brother ended up pulling her away because John was so irritated. He was like, leave me alone. Stop following me everywhere. We not friends, and started going off on the group. So, yeah, then things started to escalate. He started fingering me over my pants and, the forced kissing and all this stuff starts going on, pressing against me and like getting all riled up. And then there was these other boys. They were in 8th grade with him, and these were like, just imagine the quintessential middle school troublemakers, like to the point where they're at the football game in their school uniform. Just imagine that, like, and messed up hair, and just one of the boys now was more popular than the other ones, but yeah. So they see what's going on and they're like, now what's the word, heckling and being like, oh, let me get a piece of that, I'm next, let me in, blah blah blah. And then now I'm up against the fence, and now there's a group of boys in a half moon surrounding me, and they're closing in on me now and reaching out to try and touch my butt and all this stuff. Then he turns into Captain Save-A-Bitch, and he starts going off on them, talking about don't touch her, but you're doing the same thing. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, sorry man, we didn't know she was yours, da 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 da. Wow. If I could find every one of these dudes today, I would put a cap in each and every one. I'm not gonna lie to you. So yeah, I'm starting to really get upset now. And I don't know how, but he's pissed off because everyone keeps interrupting him and his little plan. So I don't know if he coaxed me down that hill, if he dragged me down the hill. I just remember being back on the pavement, like directly under the bleachers. And it was kind of like there was this walkway. It ended a little bit after the bleachers, and then there's the bleachers, and throughout there's this little walkway that it was different than the track though. It was the larger paved area. So he grabs my wrist now, and Now he's actually like physically dragging me. Because now I'm like pulling against him, being like, I don't want to go nowhere with you. I'm not going with you. Let me go. Now he's like dragging me. And y'all, I haven't grown a bit since I was 10 years old. Like, I'm 4'10", and the most I could have weighed at that point was like 108. So, and then it's cold. So, he's physically dragging me now. And when I tell you, this is when I start getting like tunnel vision. Like suddenly I can't see nobody except him in front of me dragging me. And when I think about this, I'm seeing it in like third person perspective. Like I'm looking over the situation. So it's so weird. So yeah. I'm getting tunnel vision and everything starts closing in. Like the people just, it seemed like they just started dwindling. It's not like they was disappearing, like everybody disappeared at once. It was just like everybody was just disappearing. Because at this point, it's kind of toward the end of the game and everybody's like locked in. They're on the bleachers, y'all. They're on the bleachers. So the only person down on that pavement, the only people down on the pavement was like people who came to bullshit at the game and not really watch the game, and then people going to the bathroom or getting concessions and stuff like that. So it wasn't, now that I think about it, it wasn't that many people down there to begin with. He's dragging me past the concessions, past the bathrooms, to the other side of the field, which is the away team side, where it's like obviously there's a few people on the bleachers over there, maybe like 10. And it's like mostly probably the coach and then like a couple moms and a couple students. But yeah, there's no one over there. And then it's the same thing over there though, where it's the bleachers and then there's the away team's bathroom. So, and then there's a fence. The fence that's blocking in the entire football field to the high school. So, he drags me over there, y'all. It is so dark. I mean, now I'm against this other fence. And he's in front of me, telling me to jump the fence with him. First of all, this fence was like twice his height. So, I don't know where he... this is disgusting to think about, honestly, because these kinds of entitled demands make absolutely no sense. So, we're both somehow gonna jump this fence and no one's gonna see us. Are you stupid? This is not no chest high fence that you could just swing over. So, of course I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then he keeps asking and I'm like, for what? And then he's like, to go to the park. Because across the street from the high school, there was a park, a public park. Mind y'all, it's approaching 9 o'clock at this point. So I'm like, I don't want to go over there with you. I don't want to do this, blah, 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 blah. But now I'm starting to get freaking tired. I'm starting to get tired. Because this is about the 1,000th no that's left my mouth during this night, and it hasn't gotten me nowhere. So now I'm kind of like starting to, I don't want to say shut down, but I'm exhausted, to say the least. And then, so I'm right here, right? And then, no, let me orient myself in a way y'all can understand. So my back is against the fence. Then the fence ends because right next to me on my right is a door. Now, I've never been over here, so at the time, I didn't know it was a bathroom. I just had to assume. I'm sure there was like a sign on the door, but yeah, so on my right, is a door. And y'all, I didn't even see the full door. I just saw a doorknob. So my mind starts racing. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't let him notice this door. And then if he does notice the door, please let the door be locked. I didn't even stare at it. I just like kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye. And then he's directly in front of me, just towering over me. So this is one of those moments that you just never forget. All of a sudden, he looks down and sees the doorknob and he just pushes it. And it pushes open. And he's like, go in here with me. Then I start getting riled up. I'm like, no, I'm not going in there with you. Blah, 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 blah. Leave me alone. Da, 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 da. I need to go find my friends. Like, I need to do this. No, he grabs me and pushes me in there. So then the automatic lights come on and it's like freaking blinding. And it turns out to be a bathroom. And I don't know what, like, I just saw a flash of him raping me in one of the stalls. So then I'm like starting to yell. And he just had the weirdest switch up. He was like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to, because now he's blocking the door. But now, I don't know why, but maybe somebody from the away team saw something was going on. I don't know who they were, but they were younger. And it was maybe like two or three girls maybe who just like suddenly came into the bathroom and they had to like get around him. He was blocking the bathroom door so bad. And then obviously it's a girl's fucking bathroom, so why are you in here? And then I'm like, I want to go find my friends. And let's not forget, this whole time he's also insulting my friends. He's like, your friends are so stupid, blah 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 blah. Anyway, so then he shifts and lifts his arm. So then I duck under his arm and I start like, I'm sure I wasn't running because I wasn't trying to make a scene, but I was rushing to go find anybody that I knew. So eventually I find my friend and her friends and I break down crying. And she's hugging me, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, that is not okay. Like, who is this guy? Da, da, da. Then, I ended up hugging the other dude who had been like watching, the one who was like, you don't have to let anybody treat you like that. It's weird because I was telling everybody what happened. But at the end of the day, we're all just kids. So, yeah, I ended up crying on his fucking shoulder. Yeah, they were supportive, but didn't really know what to do. This is a high school football game. This is not really, we're not in school, basically. So, eventually the game was over. People was leaving. It was like 9 o'clock. The game was over. So, my friend, the girl who I met up with, she stayed with me for as long as she could, but, her ride came. Her ride was there before my parents got there. So then I was left standing on like the sidewalk on the side of the high school by the entrance to the gate that leads into the football field. And y'all, it's dark. All of this has just happened. And the shift was literally palpable. Like, I don't know. That was the beginning of me being in fight or flight for the rest of my life, to be honest with you. I still, never to this day, have I felt something so horrifying. The level of paranoia as people were walking in front of me, walking behind me, anytime. Now, it was like instant. Anytime a boy or a man came near me, then I'm getting like adrenaline shocks. I'm panicking because I don't even think I was thinking like, what if he finds me out here? Now it was everybody. My body was seeing everybody as a potential threat. And the level of anxiety, I don't know, y'all. It was the feeling of a panic attack. That's the only way I could describe that. So, my parents finally showed up. And I got in the car and just had to act like everything was normal. So, they asked me, how was the game? I said, we won. Because we had won that game. We did win our last game of that season. So here are the takeaways from this story. Bad people tell you who you are, but good people ask. If you have to lie to your parents to do something, it's not a good idea. Not that it's probably not a good idea. It's absolutely not a good idea. Do not let your children go anywhere with anyone they don't know. Tell them you need to meet this person first before they do anything outside of school with them. If your child suddenly mentions a friend you've never heard of, there's probably an ulterior motive, one that someone else is pushing on your child. At this age, boys know how to use your feelings against you. He's cold, so you need to warm him up, for an example. Unexpected people will show concern because incidents of a sexual nature are extremely sensitive to people. It is baked into humanity as a society to really, truly be disgusted and outcast sexual predators. Perpetrators are frustrated by onlookers and people and witnesses. They want to get you alone even though you're out in public. pulling away from people, wanting to jump fences, going to parks at nighttime, going in bathrooms. This is always a red flag. They are possessive and will usually defend you against the very thing they're putting you through. You can adopt symptoms of PTSD with and without penetration during a sexual assault because it is still a sexual assault. My perspective on this situation now, it's disgusting, obviously, to even to kind of remember how the other children, just on looking, could sense that something was wrong. But then, my parents were clueless. It seemed like every adult was kind of clueless or was just turning an eye. But the kids, all the kids who seen this, knew something was off. So that's interesting to think about. Of course, I wonder about myself, my own core identity, whatever it is, because you might think, oh, she's grown out of this. Like, I'm married now, I'm a mom. You might think, oh, that's just weird childish behavior that she kept following this guy around and just being hard pressed to get back with him, whatever the goal was there. It's the same mentality with me in my marriage now. Being married to a man who has hurt you egregiously, even agreeing to be married to a person who has done such things to you. And the urge to keep trying to make it work, the urge to keep having hope that someone will change. It's that same magical thinking. It's just presenting in a different way. It is dangerous to force an identity on your children or refuse to give your children the opportunity to form their own identity. Because when they go out in this world, there are going to be evil people who can tell that your child has no identity. They have no concept of the self for whatever reason. And then they will come along and try to tell your child who they are. They'll try to feed your child compliments. Like, oh, you're the sweetest girl I've ever... It doesn't matter if they're a child or an adult. You're the sweetest girl I've ever met. You're the prettiest girl I've ever met. Like, you're the smartest. You're this. You're that. Don't ever give anybody the opportunity to tell your child who they are. Not even you. You can facilitate it, like you build the grounding foundation for their worth, but you, not even you as a parent, can ever tell your child who they are. So, yeah, in my next video, I'll be talking about afterwards. What happened afterwards, you might wonder, because the assault is only the beginning, trust me. And I don't know, y'all. For some people, this goes for weeks. Others, it goes for months. And other people, it spirals for years. And it will. The symptoms, untreated symptoms from an assault of any nature that traumatizes, you leave that untreated for multiple years, it is going to change into other mental illnesses. They build on top of each other. You would think you can only have one thing wrong with you. No, they will start to stack on top of each other until you are getting diagnosed with full-on personality disorders and your entire being has changed into a trauma response. So, I hope you guys join me for that next video. Maybe it might be the most important video of all.